All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Thursday morning. I hope you've got your cup of coffee and your comfortable chairs. We're going to kickstart today's MediaCorp Executive Insight. And today there's a very specific focus on programmatic. We're going to look at some very relevant examples for the Singapore market and specifically in the government landscape as well. A lot of development in the tech area when it comes to digital media, and the application of it is sometimes confusing. So the idea today is to bring more light into programmatic and programmatic guaranteed, the benefits, and the general practices that we've seen around this industry. Some housekeeping rules before we start. This webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded for all of you to access and to share with your friends who could not make it today. When you have a question, do feel free to utilize the chat or the Q&A function. We will stop midway if we see good questions to answer. If not, don't worry, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. And if you're going to be using any sort of social media, then you can definitely use our hashtag MediaCorp Exec Insights for this. If you're enjoying the music earlier, that was from Neil Diamond, special request from me. Today, so we've got an interesting group of people to speak to you today. From the Google team, we have James Hamilton, who's Media Platforms Manager at Google, and Tanvi, who's the Strategic Partner Lead at Google, and both of these guys work very closely with myself. I am Sandeep. I am the Senior Account Director for Digital Media Solutions at MediaCorp. And we've put together content taking into consideration a lot of the nuances and norms today, as well as the developments in the industry and the platforms that we use that we feel are relevant. James and Tanvi, you want to say a quick hello and welcome our listeners?
Hi, everyone. Great to be here today. My name is James Hamilton. So I'm a media platforms manager, which means that I really focus on programmatic and platforms for our largest customers in Singapore, based out of Singapore. I've been at Google for over 10 years, so I have a long journey with Google. Please do give a shout if you have any questions later on, but really excited to be here. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Tanvi. Good morning. I'm from Google's Publisher Partnerships team. Much like James, been here for 8 years, one of the dinosaurs at Google. I manage Singapore's leading news publishers, such as MediaCorp, and work very closely with Sandeep. Really looking forward to today. Thanks for having us.
All right, thank you for that, guys. And just before we kickstart the presentation proper, let's do a very quick poll, okay? And this poll is just to let us get a feel of where you are in your programmatic journey. What is your understanding of the landscape, right? So the question is, what is your current relationship with programmatic advertising? You will see a little poll box appear in front of you. Just read through. I'll read through the options as well. Number one, where you are actively running programmatic buys and are updated on the latest developments. You are a super user, basically. Number two is programmatic is part of your overall strategy, but not really clear of the technicalities. Which does happen quite a bit. We want to do more in programmatic, but not exactly sure how, which means, there's a lot of outreach required. It's too complicated and I can only access cheap inventory. So why bother? We avoid it. And the last option, which is programmatic is the best thing invented since bubble tea. I will not be surprised if some of you select that option. Okay, so just give a minute, make sure everyone click, so we can get the results up. I think programmatic is one of those things that programmatic advertising, basically, when it came up, it was seen only as a technology solution, and then became a tool for a lot of us, in our day-to-day media buys. But the advancements have brought it so much further into, a lot of what we do in the digital media space that sometimes people forget that the technology is just a tool for a greater marketing strategy. So therefore, these questions, okay? Let me see if I can get the results up. Okay, so we have the results here. The majority of you have selected 42%, in fact, have selected the second option, which is programmatic as part of the overall strategy. We're not really clear of the technicalities, which is fine because, we know that the majority of you here are advertisers, marketers, and you won't always have all of the information. So taking that into consideration, what we've actually done today is we have built the benefits and the key areas to focus on, with the focus being on programmatic guaranteed, and also how the technology has changed and how the technology is meant to help marketing decisions. Okay, so we can jump straight into it right now, right? Today's agenda is the media buying evolution on programmatic, the programmatic guaranteed space in Southeast Asia and how that has grown over time. What are the benefits of buying programmatic guaranteed, often shortened to PG, via DV360, which is Google's primary product in this space? We're going to look at a very relevant case study from the region, and we're going to talk about activating this tech with your premium publishers like MediaCorp, right? And then we'll take questions and answers at the end or as they come along. Right, so Tanvi, over to you.
Thanks, Sandeep. Now to explain the programmatic story, I'd like everyone to meet Jack. Jack is our agency media planner. Jack is looking to target female content. So he calls his rep at Vogue, books a masthead, negotiates a price, and then finally sends creatives via his trafficking department. For a long time, all of advertising was traded this way, on a personal one-to-one basis, by phone and then by email. But while this was really easy to do for one side, we experienced a proliferation of media spaces, multiple sites, large accessible audiences, data signals, and then programmatic was essentially born to address this need. Now, just like we've seen consumer payment trends evolve over time, from cash to check to eventually contactless, we've also seen programmatic and media purchasing trends evolve over time. When digital first started, tag-based reservations, like the earlier example, a one-to-one deal between an advertiser and a publisher, were the norm. But as digital opened up, opportunities that other mediums couldn't offer, such as real-time targeting, real-time bidding, really started taking off. Programmatic really started with a performance-based marketer looking to buy in the open auction. And then as it evolved further, we started moving further up that curve, which is private marketplaces provided then a medium for brand buyers to also benefit from programmatic. How would that happen? For example, if you were a brand buyer, you could reach out to a publisher, say in this case, MediaCorp, and then try to target their first party data audiences in a secure manner. A large portion of where we operate today is between the open auction and private marketplace. While programmatic guaranteed is really the future, and that's what we'll be talking about today. Programmatic guaranteed combines the benefit of real-time bidding as well as premium buying all in one place. It combines the benefit of programmatic and automated buying, allows you to buy inventory and audiences in a real-time manner with much, much better accuracy. Type yes in the chat if you understood that or if you'd like us to go into a lot more detail in the next section. Now, what's Google's vision for programmatic? Our future is really, the future that we're looking at is beyond tags and beyond a manual process. And why are we so invested? One word, automation. We want to move you to the desk on the right, because today selling reserved inventory uses many, many offline workflows. By investing in programmatic guaranteed, we're putting you on the desk on the right, eliminating all of the paperwork, automating order entry, creative management, and then also automating and facilitating the proposal negotiation process. Programmatic guaranteed enables a lot of innovative capabilities that James will actually cover much later as well. And he'll go into a lot more detail on the innovations that are possible with PG. An eMarketer study in some of the key markets like US, UK, Germany actually showed us that programmatic is already contributing to over 80% of the spends. So it really is the future. If there were three things I'd like for you to remember from today's discussion so far, would be programmatic guaranteed is really automated reservations. It's just automated reservations, a modernized workflow of the reservation piece, along with the benefits of real-time bidding. It's the future of media buying, and it unlocks value for both advertisers as well as publishers.
Hey, Tanvi, let me jump in here and ask you a quick question. You see, one of the things that some people have commented is that with programmatic buying, the relationship with the media owner or the publisher is lost, right? So this is one thing that some buyers are concerned about, which is why when they migrated into programmatic buying, they preferred the PMP approach. Can you just quickly tell us what is the difference between a private marketplace PMP versus a PG buy?
Yeah, sure. So with PG specifically, what ends up happening is for you to be able to, it automates, you can still have a proposal and a negotiation process, but it is still automated. And there is a connection with the advertiser as well as the publisher in this case. So you would be able to, using Google Ad Manager as a platform, still be able to continue to do your proposal negotiations. There's not a fixed price that's been defined. With PG, you can still do a proposal and a negotiation, set the right price, set the right targeting, and have that one-to-one relationship still exists while bringing in the benefits of RTB.
Right. So basically what you're saying is that with programmatic guaranteed, we're still doing the whole negotiation process, the whole proposal process, the impressions that you're buying are still guaranteed, just that you're using a technology platform to activate it.
You summed it up perfectly.
All right. And I think James is going to cover a few more technicalities behind the benefits of that. Let's go into your little study, Tanvi.
Yeah, thanks. So in 2017, there was a study done by BCG, and they expected programmatic guaranteed spends within APAC to double by 2020. And we have a very interesting talk by Thomas Hoskin, who is the project lead on this, talking about some of the factors that have contributed to adoption of programmatic guaranteed in all of Southeast Asia. So let's hear from him.
Programmatic guaranteed is a potentially transformative shift in the digital advertising ecosystem, and it's already growing rapidly in Asia-Pac. We see Southeast Asia emerging as a really interesting potential growth area for programmatic guaranteed, particularly given rapid internet user growth. There's also quite an interesting contrast in the region, because you have, at the moment, more than 80% of ad revenues coming from Singapore as a hub of programmatic buying activity. But you also have all of the smaller local publishers across the other countries in Southeast Asia, where there's the potential for further organic growth. We see programmatic guaranteed share of digital display and video in Southeast Asia potentially quadrupling between 2017 and 2020. And that's driven by a few different things. Certainly the influence of big global advertisers and agencies in the region setting top-down targets on programmatic adoption and programmatic guarantee. Singapore continuing to develop as a programmatic buying hub will also drive adoption, but also as you start to see some buyers that are less familiar with traditional programmatic buying models use programmatic guaranteed as an initial entry point, given its similarity to traditional direct reservation. For that process to scale, though, local markets will absolutely need to continue to develop capabilities. More experienced users of programmatic, both agencies and publishers, will need to work with less experienced partners in order to help bring them along. As that occurs, spending can absolutely follow trends of more developed markets in the region.
So this was really interesting because, I mean, this study was done and the prediction was made in 2017. We're in 2021 now. I can definitely say from a MediaCorp standpoint, we started running programmatic guaranteed campaigns about 2 years ago. And we've definitely seen a massive increase in uptake from all sorts of different industries. And that's interesting because we focus primarily on the Singapore market. Maybe Tanvi, James, would you agree that this prediction was correct? Have we actually seen that much growth over the past few years?
Yeah, I can jump in there from a Singapore hub perspective. So my particular focus is across Singapore as a programmatic hub. So it really is, to his point, it is the heartbeat of the programmatic landscape in Singapore. And the clients that we are working with based out of Singapore have definitely shown that trend to be true. Really, if I look back at a lot of the the spends across DV360 on programmatic, it is massively increased since 2019. It was really the turning point in which I think this started to take off for our marketplace.
Awesome. And I think let's now, I think we've established the what, right? Let's establish the whys, right? So what is the difference and what is the best of it coming into this reservation model? And James is going to talk to us about the best of Google in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be here with you guys today. Thanks for the time. So yeah, and thank you, Tanvi, for it was a really great recap of where the industry has come from and where we are today. So I'd like to just walk you through all the major benefits, major opportunities really for you as marketers and the key benefits to be able to bring the best of Google to your reservation media buying. So generally speaking, publishers and buyers have historically transacted via two primary ways, which Tanvi's kind of walked you through, and now you have an idea of the landscape. The direct buys reflect the traditional way of media buying. So historically, really just that one-to-one publisher buy, but not on a programmatic or digital platform. The industry has evolved, though, to become more sophisticated and efficient through the use of data and technology. And that's really what we're talking about when we're talking about programmatic, the use of data and technology to be able to transact your buys in the most effective and efficient manner. So really the crux of the conversation today is around what we would call programmatic guaranteed. And PG, and as Sandeep referred to earlier as PG, sometimes lovingly referred to. So programmatic guaranteed is really just the certainty of guaranteed direct buys with the smarts and the data and technology of programmatic decisioning. So we're taking these two worlds and combining them together to really give you the best and most efficient marketing media buying platforms. Now, when we're talking about programmatic guaranteed, as Sandeep mentioned earlier, Google's media buying platform is DV360, Display Video 360. So when we're talking about programmatic guaranteed with DV360, there's three main benefits over direct reservations that I'd like to walk you all through. The first is being able to reach more people online more effectively. So not just impressions, not just cookies, but reach more people and reach your audience more effectively. Then second is to really be able to engage your audience more effectively with the best of programmatic capabilities and using the best of digital formats to really make sure their messaging hits and lands. And the last is being able to target the right audience through a variety of data sources that are only available altogether on programmatic. So let me just walk you through a typical marketing scenario. And this is something that many marketers will have faced throughout the years, whether or not on programmatic or not. So let's say your media plans for new campaign include several publishers you'd like to take advantage of direct deals with, traditional reservation buys. But you also want to make sure you have wider coverage across other media types like using YouTube or display advertising. Now let's say that your actual marketing goal is to be able to hit a user, to be able to cap amount of times a user sees an ad at 3 times. So you really only want to show a user 3 times your ads across your entire marketing mix and campaign 3 times. Now, historically, that's been very difficult to do. You might set a frequency cap with one publisher at 3, frequency cap with another publisher at 3, and then let's say all your media buys happening on programmatic were also set at 3. But this means that really, ultimately, you may end up hitting a user up to 9 times, or if they're across all different devices, up to 27 times. Obviously, that leads to inefficient media and overexposure of users, 2 things that are not great for a marketer. Now, how can we solve for this? So as a marketer, we always want to reach our users as efficiently and as effectively as possible. And as we saw before, although you may have intended to reach your audience 3 times, you could have been reaching them up to 9 or 27 times. Google's media buying platform, DV360, will allow you to manage your frequency across all of these publishers that you have now done direct reservations with, as well as the rest of your media. So your display, your video, and YouTube all together, and actually stay closer in line with the goal of reaching your user just 3 times. This is something that's very unique to DV360. As DV360 is really the only platform that can manage frequency across all of your YouTube media. So this is something that's a unique benefit of DV360 as Google's media buying platform, as well as any of your other media you're buying, including MediaCorp. So this is a very unique value proposition that gives you the chance to control and manage the way that you're having a conversation with your users and drive the most efficient reach possible.
James, this was a great point, because I think one of the things from, at least from a MediaCorp standpoint, because we carry a lot of local video inventory, and a lot of times advertisers come up to us and they want to try and find out what's the best way to like ensure that there isn't too much of a duplication across MediaCorp's video properties as well as YouTube. I mean, both platforms have got massive reach. Both platforms have potentially got a high overlap between the audiences as well. And we know that in the digital space, there isn't enough research and studies to talk about the overlap from a pre-planning perspective. So the fact that you brought up frequency capping can work across YouTube as well as your publisher direct buys, it means that the marketer can rest assured that he's not wasting impressions on repeated advertising to the same user. So managing frequency cap across multiple different touch points, it really makes a lot of sense.
That's right. It allows each media touch point to kind of perform to its best without oversaturating and overexposing your users, and actually saving you money often in the process.
Yeah, this reminds me of another challenge or a myth rather sometimes that we face is the easy route when it comes to media buying is to find the platform that carries the most reach and then just run the ad there, or rather the most reach at the lowest price point even. But this basically tells me that I can now look at the highest, the top performing sites from an indexing perspective to a particular target audience. I can execute a buy across each of these sites and then manage my frequency centrally so that I don't get duplication.
That's right. Yep. And to add to that even more so, to just drive that point home a bit more. So built into our platform as well as we're really developing and have developed over the past year to 2 years, best in class kind of reach planning products. So moving forward, you'll be able to add your PG buys into our planning tool and be able to see kind of what is the impact on that and how much extra reach am I getting when I add different media into the mix. So that's kind of forward looking, but it's where we want to be eventually, to be able to provide sort of a one-stop shop for all your planning and frequency management solutions.
Nice.
Cool.
Let's look at a quick case study, shall we?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'd love to walk you through all kind of how one of our local partners, Samsung in Indonesia, was able to actually use DV360 frequency management to reach more users, more customers at a lower cost. So this is really impactful for their business. Ultimately, the challenge for Samsung was standing out in a very competitive phone market. So Indonesia is an extremely competitive smartphone market, and they really wanted to make their new products make a splash in the media marketplace. So they also had a challenge in being able to reach their potential buyers as efficiently as possible, given the fact that this was a very competitive marketplace. So they wanted to stand out and also reach their buyers very efficiently. Ultimately, what they turned to for a solution was really using the best of premium inventory. So using publishers and partners that allowed them to use buying types like programmatic guarantee to ensure that they were on premium parts of their sites, to really stand out and make sure that they have their messaging front and center. And then they used DV360 as a buying platform to ensure that they were able to manage their frequency and actually drive more reach for actually less costs per user. So ultimately, they were able to drive 4% greater reach and reduce their cost to reach a user by 76%. Pretty dramatic results for a marketing campaign.
We're going to quickly watch a video on that particular case study. So just sit back. Oh.
The Indonesian smartphone market is super competitive, and it's very hard for us to predict when people are ready to buy their new phone. We needed to ensure that our Samsung Galaxy A6 and A6 Plus remain top of mind among customers looking for their smartphones. After the spike in interest we get at the launch, we need to work hard to maintain high brand recall and be the first choice when people are ready to purchase their new phone.
We wanted to help Samsung maximize their media investment and extend the duration of their campaign. This meant we had to closely control our ad exposures to our target audience over the course of the campaign. But we could not do that with direct reservation because we could not cap the number of times a particular user sees our ads across all sites. We estimated that users could be seeing our ads up to 8 times a day. This made the cost per unique reach really high. As a result, it was hard for us to stretch the budget over a longer campaign period. We used Programmatic Guaranteed with frequency management to consolidate all the premium reservation based on a single automated platform. This gave us a holistic view of our impressions across various sites and enabled us to limit the number of times any user sees our ads to just twice per day. By doing this, we were able to extend the duration of our campaign without going over budget.
Compared to previous campaigns, we were able to reach 4 times the number of unique users at only 25% of the cost per user. This campaign was one of the most cost-effective campaigns we've ever done. With all the other channels this has now opened up, we are so excited to see how we can reach even more people in better ways.
This was a really good example, James. Thanks for sharing this, because I felt like, yes, it was in the Indonesian market, but the campaign objective was really reach, right? They weren't looking at conversion and all of that, which is a completely different conversation. But they're looking at extending reach across different touch points. They're trying to push their brand messaging out. And that's very relevant to, I think, a lot of the non-sales campaigns that we run, you know, where you're actually providing information, education, where the objective is awareness and reach and media efficiency, right? You don't want to throw taxpayer dollars down the drain with repeated advertising when the message has been delivered already. So I thought it was a really good example on that. And the other thing that brought up, you know, we've got a question here about, is programmatic advertising more expensive compared to real-time bidding, right? And it's a question that we get a lot, right? There is a perception that with real-time bidding and the open auctions, I can really save on CPMs and I can really drive my cost down. But I think what you got to look at it in you know, is from a more holistic perspective, like what the Samsung example just talked about, where it is not the cost of a single ad unit, but it is the cost of your overall ROI across the marketing campaign. So if you have buys from, you know, open auction, as well as premium ad units that you're running with a premium publisher, what is the overall cost savings at the end of the campaign? I think that is what the focus should be on, rather than the CPM cost at the buying stage. And obviously there are tools available, you know, the media agencies that we work with, and some of whom are attending today, are very familiar with how to calculate ROI based on the settings that they input into DV360. Would you agree with that, James?
Yeah, that's right. That's perfectly put. And as actually, I think one of the things they highlighted in the video really nicely as well was the impact on their brand metrics, being able to extend this campaign out and being able to manage their media more efficiently. So it doesn't always have to come down to sales, like Sandeep said. It's also how do you manage your media more effectively over the long term to drive your brand message.
Yeah. The second part to that cost question was, what is the minimum ad spend recommended for a start using programmatic advertising? And that's an interesting question, because every publisher will have their own thresholds. Now, obviously, if you were looking only at open auction buying, you could start with any amount of budget and see how it goes. But I think you kind of have to figure out what is an effective spend to start with. And when I say effective, it is how it relates to your KPI. If your KPI is reached, then what percentage of the online population do you want to hit? And then work backwards to figure out what a good spend is. A lot of, like from a programmatic guaranteed perspective, we take in campaigns from 5,000 onwards, right? There will be other publishers who will take in from a lower threshold. So when you combine that with open auction as well as multiple publisher buys, I think that's where the really cost efficiency comes across.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I want to go to the next slide.
Thanks. So yeah, now thank you for that, Sandeep, for the wrap up. So now I'll briefly touch on the second major benefit of programmatic guaranteed I discussed up front, which is really the importance of creative. So as most marketers know, creative plays actually a very large role in the success of marketing campaigns. In fact, at Google, our studies have traditionally shown that it can drive up to 70% of a campaign's performance alone. It's really the creative being the center stage. So as marketers, what we generally want to see is creatives that are engaging users. And at Google, we're actually able to do that with our DV360 platform by really giving you the best of innovative digital creative formats alongside publishers like MediaCorp's premium inventory, as well as their own premium formats. So that we're now able to actually add the tech benefits of DV360. So all the power of programmatic alongside the power of the publishers, creatives, and our own creatives. It's a really powerful combination, essentially, which is really just saying that we now have innovative digital creatives, plus the ability to now reach a user on premium inventory, as well as the smarts of programmatic and the data and technology of programmatic all in one place. To really give you a very, very powerful buying tool to have the right conversation with your users and your target audience. And to the last point about target audience, one of the major benefits as well of programmatic on DV360 is being able to use a variety of different audience in combination when you're actually still using the programmatic guaranteed buy type. So still being able to run premium inventory, but with targeted different audiences. That can be anywhere from using Google's audience data to using MediaCorp's audience data, to even using your own, what we'd often call first party audience data. Being able to layer that on top of your media buy to make sure that you're reaching the right user with the right message is incredibly impactful. So hopefully you all feel empowered now to be able to reach the right user at the right time in the right context. To recap, the three main areas of benefit were being able to reach more people more efficiently, engaging creatives, and being able to target your audiences with data. So I'll take a quick pause there, and hopefully now you've understood at least one major benefit of PG over direct reservation with DV360. If you did, go ahead and type yes in the chat box. We'd love to hear from you. Love to hear if you have any thoughts on this or any other benefits that you'd like to hear a bit more about.
Yeah, we've got some great questions coming in as well. And I want to address some of those before we move on. Sure. So one of the questions that I want to talk about is, and actually this was the first question, and I love this question, okay, because this is exactly what I always talk about. How can programmatic change the way consumers view advertising? Okay, so this is perfect because when I first entered the programmatic space 7 years ago, I would have answered this question by saying, programmatic is a technology solution, right? The consumer is not going to know whether the ad he's viewing is bought or sold programmatically or direct or hard-coded onto the web page. The consumer doesn't care, right? So it all depends on how good your creative is or how strong your messaging is or how good your awareness activities are, right? Today, I'm going to tell you that the consumer still won't know whether it was bought programmatically or not. But by using some of the technologies and the benefits that James just talked about, you can improve the user experience with advertising. Okay, so using the right targeting for relevance of ads, using rich media creatives for engaging ad formats that actually tell your brand story or tell your campaign messaging a bit better, having an interaction with the consumer, and also ensuring that there's proper frequency management so they're not seeing your ads all over the place, right? I think there was a lot of case studies done 3 or 4 years ago where a beauty product was being run on YouTube nonstop, okay, with very little frequency capping. It was a female product, but males were seeing it as well. And this was a discussion topic for all programmatic platforms. Everyone was talking about it. Today, using all of these technologies, you ensure that across your multiple buys, your frequency is managed. Your ad is relevant because you're leveraging on data that is not just one data set, but multiple data sets. And I'm going to talk about first-party data from a publisher's point of view next. And if you're using rich media creatives as well, which you may not get access to on the open auction, it means that you're delivering a lot better an ad experience to the consumer, right? So that's a beautiful question and 2 different answers that you would have received depending on when you had asked me, okay? So from a publisher standpoint, right? So MediaCorp, a publisher, we consider ourselves a premium publisher. So for us, programmatic guaranteed is very important because it allows advertisers and marketers to access our premium ad units, okay, in the form of rich media. Premium placements in terms of where the ads are appearing. And one of the questions I do get quite commonly and has been put into a chat box as well is, does direct buy take more priority versus PG and open auction? So this is determined by the publisher. And I can tell you that all publishers worth their salt follow the same concept, which is PG and direct IO buys are the same priority, right? So like in MediaCorp, what we do is we consider sponsorships as the highest priority, which means that if you're doing like a homepage takeover, or you're doing a section buyout, that kind of a buy is considered the highest priority, regardless of whether you did it via PG or direct IO. The next is inventory buys via either direct or PG. And the last tier is open auction buys, right? Because we know the CPM fluctuates, and most publishers are applying the same practice. All right, so thank you for that question. And there's another question on the cookieless future. I love this question because I did a whole webinar series on the cookieless future. If you want to know more about that, you can jump into the MediaCorp Executive Insights website, where we've put up recordings of all past webinars as well. Okay, so back to this. So some of you are very familiar that MediaCorp has invested a lot of time and effort into building our own data management platform, okay? And we call this MeID, right? This is our audience analytics hub, which basically helps us to collect data across all of our digital properties. We've got a loyalty program called Me Rewards, where people are providing us declared information. There are single sign-on efforts across all of our major touch points. So if you're a user on CNA, you're a user on Me Listen, on Me Watch, you use that same sign-on to access all of these platforms. And then that gives us a lot of declared information. The partners that we work with, so some of you are familiar that we don't just work across our owned and operated sites. We also have got the partner network with the likes of Mothership, ESPN Singapore, 99.co, and so on and so forth. So we are collecting data across those touch points as well. And not to mention all the campaigns that we run, all the behaviors that are seen in those campaigns. So that's a lot of data to collect. And what we're doing is that we're taking all of this first-party data and we're putting it into a platform that helps to segment and organize that. And that platform is the MeID Audience Analytics Hub. So this is our internal usage of our first-party data so that we can segment it, we can bucket it for the use of targeting. Now, what are the benefits of doing this internally, right? We've done this because we want a single source of truth for our data. Your behavior, you as a consumer, your behavior on Channel News Asia and MeWatch are going to be very specific to your interest as compared to your general viewing on, I don't know, all the video sites available in Singapore. It gives us very highly granular behavioral signals for us to build really detailed analysis and detailed strategies across the different audiences. It allows us to become a bit more focused. So let's say you've got a client. Okay, let me use a rough example. The Health Promotion Board wants to target all users who have read up about food and beverage outlets in the recent past 6 weeks. Why? Because they're launching a new initiative that is going to be that's going to impact this F&B establishments. So what we can do is 6 weeks prior to the campaign, we can already start building that sort of customer audience for activation during that time campaign. This is a hypothetical scenario, right? But there's so many different examples I can talk about. If HPB was collecting data on their own, we could actually look at how to port that data and have a bit of correspondence between the first-party data that we're collecting and the first-party data that that particular client is collecting. And that's what I mean by portability of data. It's an easy-to-use platform that we're really benefiting from, and it has reduced third-party data dependency tremendously. And that is an answer to the question, right? How is the cookieless future going to affect programmatic advertising? We expect to see massive growth in programmatic guaranteed because that allows you to access a publisher's first-party data. What James talked about earlier is using DV360 allows you to use Google audiences as well as your publisher first-party data in tandem, right? PMPs will also improve with this because PMPs, like what we do with the Singapore Media Exchange, are designed to allow you to buy non-reserve impressions while still leveraging on first-party data. So there's definitely going to be a change in buying styles across the board when third-party cookies are less prevalent, but it's only going to lead towards greater importance on first-party data across publishers, across advertisers, across partners like Google. So how this really works, and what I want to talk to you about, is the fact that these behavioral segments don't just exist for the purpose of existing, right? We have worked with the Internet Advertising Bureau's definition of these different interest buckets, right? So declared data is primarily, a lot of it is demographic data, and we've bucketed that together with, almost 400 different interest tiers, so that we can get really specific about our targeting when it comes to a particular ad campaign. Not only is that helping from a pre-planning perspective, it also helps optimization during the campaign, and that helps for PG campaigns just as much as it does direct campaigns that we run. And all of this is already ready. This interest buckets that we're talking about, they exist already and are integrated into the Google Ad Manager platform. So when, for example, Starcom's running a programmatic campaign and they are asking to target specific audiences, you are already leveraging Mediacorp's first-party data, because that has been feeding into Google Ad Manager since we set MeID up. Right? So moving away from data, let's talk a little bit more about your consumer and their audience and the audience's attention. I think we know that attention is limited. People are not spending as much time as they did on one particular touch point. They're spending it across multiple different touch points. So attention spans are changing. And what we know is that the good old display banner is not as effective as it used to be, because we're concerned about fatigue, we're concerned about viewability, whether it is getting lost in the browsing experience. This is where engagement and rich media comes in. The ability to deliver high quality and of an ad experience is so important because it's something that today with technology is scalable. It is not as difficult to access as it used to be maybe 3 years ago. So Mediacorp went ahead and works with the formats that you see in DV360, but we also have licensed a creative platform that helps us to build rich media formats internally, so that we can upload them and then you can support whatever sort of buys you can run. And this is easy to do. We handle it internally. It's a low cost option from a long scale perspective. Here's some examples of what I mean by rich media format. So in the mobile space, video is very important. So how do you put video effectively into the mobile space, knowing that a lot of videos that play on mobile are going to play on mute and are going to take up a very small percentage of the screen. So this example is using a mobile scroller format with a vertical video, right? A beautiful example where you've just got the video, which is obviously meant to draw attention. There's a strong call to action message. There's a strong action that you want from the user, and that's very clear. And it's a non-intrusive format. So I talked earlier about user experience. Both of these formats that you've seen here are non-intrusive in the sense that they are scroll friendly. They only open up when the user scrolls to them, and they scroll, as they scroll away, the ad closes. This is a far cry from what we saw a few years ago with pop-up formats, those interstitials that interrupt your user experience. And this falls into line with what we call, what is known as the Better Ads Initiative, where a conglomerate of different bodies, including Google and Mediacorp, have come together and said that we don't want to irritate our users anymore. We want to deliver ads that are non-intrusive. And this is a perfect example of that. Both of these were simply done. We were given the creative, we were given images, and we built this internally. It's not just limited to mobile. You can do that on desktop as well. Another point to talk about is priority positioning. And I'll tell you this straight up. You cannot access CNA homepage buys on the open auction, right? You will only get these top banner positions and homepage buys via our SMX buys or PG and direct buys. So one of the benefits for this is how we do homepage buyouts. Previously, homepage buyouts used to be really difficult things to do, where we would actually hard code your banners into the home pages or into the sections to make sure that every single ad that you see belongs to that one particular advertiser. today, all of that trafficking and all of that activity can be done via programmatic guaranteed. So you will discuss it with the publisher, you'll discuss it with me, for example, and then we'll talk about the pricing, we'll talk about which other ad formats they're going to run, which period, the availability. We will set that up on programmatic guaranteed via DV360 on your end, and on our end, Google Ad Manager, and we would run it. So you will still get centralized reporting via DV360 for a homepage buyout or a section buyout on a site like CNA. These large formats that you're seeing, what we call the billboards and the half-page ads, 300 by 600, 970 by 250s. A lot of the time, if you were to try and get this through the open auction, the ad calls won't respond, simply because of all the different layers that come into play when you're doing open auction. But when you do PG, majority of our buys are these large formats. And that's what we're telling people. When you're looking at your overall marketing strategy, we're not saying spend all of your money only with a premium publisher. What we're saying is that use your premium publisher PG for these high impact formats, coupled with your open auction buys for your hygiene formats, like your 7 to 8 by 90s, your 300 by 250s, and manage your frequency across both of them, right? Then you get centralized reporting, you get a proper understanding of how many people are seeing your ad campaign, you get an understanding of exactly what the interaction rate is across all of these ad formats, and the effectiveness of your campaign from a eCPM perspective can be calculated easily as well. One other example I'll talk about is engagement-driven formats. So we've seen a big increase in this space as well, where we take a simple, a lot of brands come to us, and a lot of clients from the government come to us as well and say that, okay, you know what, I've got this video, but I've also got all of this information that I need to push out, sometimes in the form of infographics. But how do I build an effective ad across that? This example with the little hair product is really a really good example, because what it is, this is actually an interactive video format. There is I think it's a 15-second TVC, okay? And we've got all of this image material to support it. So what we actually did is we have the video running, but the video pauses so that the user can go pick a color, right? And see how the image changes with the color that they've picked. So it's immediate interaction to deliver information. And the same can be done if you're releasing like a 3-part, let me just say, if you're releasing a new campaign with a 3-part message, right? So you can build this with a TVC and image copy that can be built into that video for interaction and understanding of that particular campaign. Another area that's been growing a lot is lead generation. We want to do more surveys because we want to find out what the perception of certain initiatives are. And this example that I have here from BMW is really great, because BMW, they had a big awareness campaign across the launch of this new particular model, but they were also getting people to sign up for test drives. And we did this across multiple formats. The example that I've done here is just one of the multiple formats we created to do this. And what's important is that we are completely aware that PDPA is a massive requirement, and we can build that into these ads effectively as well. So this, together with an awareness campaign, applying the methodologies of retargeting, applying the methodologies of frequency capping and management, even sequentially delivering ads, all of those concepts are still actionable via programmatic guaranteed, because there is not much of a difference between a direct buy and a programmatic guaranteed. The difference here is that you're using a centralized platform to manage it. And the point that I want to finish off with is that each interaction between a user and your brand and your particular message that you want to deliver in this campaign is unique and should be treated as such. I think we need to move away from programmatic is cheap kind of conversations. I only want to look at my buy CPM versus my eCPM at the end of the campaign. I only want to look at clicks and impressions. I think these are myths and practices that have been changing. I'm not saying that they're prevalent, but we've moved away from that. Leveraging the technology is just one aspect of the marketing activity, we get it. But having this understanding means that the facilitation of, or rather the utilization of this technology in your marketing plans is going to be better. And I want to leave you with this, right? It's an amazing quote, because too many times when we talk to programmatic players, when we talk to buyers, when we talk to advertisers who come to talk to us about digital marketing and programmatic, they forget that programmatic is the end tail solution. The real crux of the campaign is in the beginning where the strategy fits. And if you start planning your strategy with an understanding of how you're going to buy that media and execute that media, I think that strategy will be built a lot better. Because according to David Ogilvy, you cannot bore people into buying your product, only interest them. We've covered a lot today, and we've got a lot of questions as well. We're gonna hang around a little bit more just to answer a few more questions. But Tanvi, James, any closing remarks from you guys? Maybe James?
Sure, I'll go ahead. No, thank you all for the attention and the time today, and the questions were excellent, really engaging questions. And thanks for Sandeep for jumping in. No, yeah, I think Sandeep really summed it up nicely. It's really, the technology is really meant to help you all as marketers make sure that, and make sure that you're having the right conversations and really reaching your clients, users, et cetera, in the right context and the right time. So we're just here to help empower that and to help make sure that you all are having those really strong brand engagements and driving sales when needed, et cetera.
No, thank you so much again for all your time and for these really engaging questions. Both of them summed it up perfectly. I think I just want to move you to the desk to the right, eliminate all of your offline workflows, modernize the entire process. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. So I think this question didn't pop up, but I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to say, if you are, so we've got quite a few government attendees today from the government marketing teams, and also the agencies. If you're unclear about where you can start, if you're not already in the space of running programmatic guaranteed buys, if you want to know more about this and you want to get started, and you're confused about, should I be talking to MediaCorp, should I be talking to whoever, your agency touch points are the way to go, right? Because we have already done the necessary diligence to work with the Starcoms, the Precisions of the world, all of the other agency groups. We have worked with them to set up the programmatic guaranteed pipes to ensure that they have the right information across what formats are available, how to get access to pricing, how to get access to what kind of data is available, how do we actually build this into our bigger plan, because a lot of you are using agencies to manage your overall media buy, which is perfect. And what I'm saying to you is that the pipes already exist. And if you want to reach out to any one of us, you can definitely send an inquiry to MediaCorp Advertising Inquiries. That's a link that you can get really easily. Look me up on LinkedIn if you want to find out more about some of the stuff that we talk about, or you want to know how to access MediaCorp's offerings. And the Google team, hit them up on LinkedIn as well if you have more questions, right? We're going to end our session. This recording will be put up. You will get an email notification once the recording is up so that you can share it. I think there was one attendee earlier who said his colleague was unable to access. No problem. You will get access to the recording because that will be open to public viewing. Right? Thank you so much for your time today. I've had a really good time and I want to do this again and again and again. So have a great rest of the day. Tanvi, James, thank you also for your attendance and sharing your insights.
Thank you all.
For being part of this host. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.